I would like to think of myself as a mediator, someone that stands between the artistic production and the different ways that this production can arrive to the public. And during this last 10 years, let's say, I have found myself increasingly drawn to some artistic practices that expand in different ways the physical and or the theoretical limits of art, often establishing relations with other spheres of society, like political, social, linguistic, architectural, and so on. So I've been interested in departing from this reflection on the artists I work with in collaboration for kind of many years. I've been very interested in analyzing two opposite or complementary paths in which artistic practice can move. On the one hand, those which go beyond any attempt to circumscribe the art piece or the artistic practices within a physical space. And on the other hand, I'm also interested in thinking about how these proposals can return to the exhibition space. Not necessarily the exhibition space that conforms to the patterns developed by the Museum of Modern Art, but rather to think about the ways in which the artist bring her or his art back to a place of reflection. How can we make sure that each artistic proposal can last for the entire duration of its proper lifespan, and not be destroyed before fulfilling its potential because of imposed institutional timing and rhythm? That is, you know, like a gallery that needs to change exhibition every month, or a biennial that has a certain, so each institution kind of install a rhythm and a timing, and how can we think about the artist's practices not being cut because of the institutional timing? How can we cross these things in a more productive way? Another question is, how can we deal with the international art circuit driving mainly by a logic of production and consumption without being swept along by it? How can we use this system parasitically, quoting Sildo, to propose precisely the opposite, the possibility of gaining a new perspective on the world from a critical standpoint, returning to a human time of research and reading for the production of knowledge and reflection? So that are some main points that really interest me and that I've been discussing with artists and how to deal with this. Anyway, let's talk about the artist then. So first I'm going to talk about Eric Beltrán. He's an artist from Mexico, living in Barcelona. He was born in 1974. This is I work in collaboration with Eric since 2002, since first time we met, in many different ways, like in different places I am when it's coherent to involve his research and he comes to the place and develop a new work. Okay, so this is, let me talk about the works. This is a newspaper in Holland, Netherlands, and what he did was, his work is really about information and editing printed material, and how can you question this institutionalized truths that are kind of not imposed, but that are when they are in a special format, like the newspaper, for instance, people tend to believe on them. So how to deal with all this information? So his work, it's a little bit like a virus that enters these systems, and it's not about changing the information, but it's about making people aware of what they are grasping every day. So this is an example. Some of his works are like 5 years research, and some of them are like 1 day insertion. So this, for instance, was in Het Parool. It's a Netherlands newspaper, and what he did was he took out in 1 day in the first page all the letters U from the first page, and U in Dutch means like here U, but the letter U, U is U. And so if you see in the top of the photograph, like N, eigen, and you see like who is, like everywhere, even in the, well, in the text or in the red lines, there's always this space instead of you, blank space. And then,
why you?
Well, it's because you is you, but also because it's not about changing the information, but it's about making people like aware of some mistakes coming in the newspaper, and then you think maybe, you know, normal people were back there building this and they committed a mistake somehow. So it's this kind of work that are not, they don't say it's a work of art, but next day there's always an article, and actually the article, the journalist was quite interesting that wrote the article telling people that this was art, because he wrote, you, how can I translate it? But you look for, you wonder, you wanted to know everything about the you. And then he explained that is this Mexican artist that take the you out of the newspaper one day before. And then just connecting to a project he did 2 years after in Brazil, to get back to it, in Fortaleza, in the northeast of Brazil. This is the main newspaper there, so it was in the framework of the Bienal de Fortaleza. And what he did was changing all the dots and commas of the whole newspaper into the image, the icon of a running man, which is, can you see it? Yeah. Okay, so in the whole newspaper, he just changed the dots and the commas. So the information is still there, and you can read everything, but somehow there was like around 6,000 running men arriving at your place in your newspaper. So this is this kind of virus that he kind of, this is like from 2002, it's old work, but I think it's interesting to think about this. Entering these systems, but not to subvert them, only to make these little changes that can make you aware of it. And then it's quite funny, the reactions. For me, it's quite telling, the reactions of people in Netherlands when the newspaper came with these blank spaces. People called the newspaper and really complained, like, what's going on, there's a mistake, there was no printing well. And next day when the article went out, people were kind of happy, like satisfied with this idea of having an artist doing like public art in their newspaper. And in Fortaleza, when the newspaper went out, people called because they were so happy with the little man, and they wondered what was it, and oh, it's so cute, and are you changing the newspaper? And then next day when the article came out, people got really angry, like, who is this Mexican artist? Who does he think he is? And what is this art? And I mean, and so I think it's interesting to think about this expansion of art into other fields, because in Netherlands, where public art is really like everyone has an idea of what it is, they kind of get happy with not the newspaper being wrong, but being an artist project. And in Brazil was kind of completely different